He's kind of got their own one, but we'll work with a functional definition here. We'll talk about a variety of hybrid cloud architectures. There are many, many, many ways to do hybrid cloud. There's certain ones that are reliable. There's certain ones that we know that work, and they've been codified as architectures. We'll talk about the elements that make up most hybrid clouds. We'll talk about the tools that you can use to manage and govern your hybrid cloud. We'll talk about some of the things that you need to think about if you've got data in the hybrid cloud. And we'll also hit some challenges and really reinforce that hybrid cloud or any adoption of technology isn't all upsides. There's other things that you need to consider. There's things that you need to be aware of. And sometimes in these sort of sessions that people they can only give you the good bits and they won't say, well, here's some of the drawbacks as well. You've got to understand the balance that you're striving for. So, what is a hybrid cloud? For the perspective of Microsoft Azure, a hybrid cloud is a stable state, not a transitional state, but a stable state where an organisation will host some workloads on-prem and other workloads in Azure. So this is an important statement. We're not talking about hybrid as a transitional state. We're not saying that hybrid is the road that you're on between on-prem and the cloud. We're actually saying that hybrid cloud is a destination where you're getting the best of both worlds. In a hybrid cloud environment, you've got resources on-prem, and those resources on-prem are able to communicate securely and seamlessly with resources in the Azure cloud. So what that means is that the communication between the elements of this cloud, be it on-prem or be it in an Azure data center, have secure communication. It's not something where someone can easily go and intercept that communication or interrupt it or modify it. In a hybrid cloud, you have a consistent identity infrastructure for authentication and authorization. Now, what that means is it means that you're not using a separate set of accounts to authenticate against cloud resources compared to the accounts that you use to authenticate on-prem. Now, it might be that you have a single identity provider. Most likely, given that this is Microsoft, it's going to be something like Active Directory. But what you're not doing is you're not doing what used to happen at a place I worked in the 90s, where each system that the staff interacted with required a separate set of login credentials. And people had to keep notebooks around to look up what the credentials were for a particular system that they were interacting with. If they were enrolling students, they looked at one thing. If they were doing faculty finances, they were doing another one. In a hybrid cloud, you've got a consistent identity. If you need to authenticate against a web app on-prem, you use that identity. You use the same identity to authenticate against a database running in the cloud. Now, the other thing about a good hybrid cloud is that you've got a consistent set of tools that allow you to manage on-prem and cloud workloads and infrastructure. What does this mean? It means that, again, you don't need to pull out a different toolbox if your stuff's on-prem compared to the toolbox you pull out if your stuff's in the cloud. In the best of all worlds, you're using a single tool to manage workloads on-prem or in the cloud. And in the best of all worlds, you don't really need to know if the workload's on-prem or in the cloud. You're just using the tool to manage it wherever it is. Now, the other thing and the final thing in this particular definition of hybrid cloud, and there's other definitions out there, this isn't certainly something formalised by something like NIST. It's that you have a consistent set of technologies used to secure your on-prem and cloud resources. So just as I said, you don't have a different toolbox for managing on-prem as opposed to managing the cloud. You have